Hello and welcome back to Up Past Bedtime. I'm Bella Messina. I'm going to be staying up late with you tonight. I'm joined today by the beautiful Kellie Moses. Kellie is a spiritual healer. She has been, I class you as my life coach for like the last year. We've done so much work together, especially during the transition of me becoming a single mum. Kellie is a single mum herself. I think this episode is going to be eye-opening to a lot of people. I'm going to use that word. Look, everyone strap in today, okay? We're going into the realm of the woo-woo, okay? We are going to be going into something that's a little bit left field. I got to admit, the first time I met Kellie and I sort of heard about her work, I've told you this, Kellie, I was like, what is this bullshit? What is she do? What is this? I don't understand any of this. This is really weird. This is really strange. And so if you are not someone who is into like holistic sort of work or spiritual work or energetic work or anything like that, you might have a similar response at the start of the episode, and that's okay. But I'm going to try and open up the world to Kellie because she has truly transformed my life and how I operate. And I have wanted for so long to get her on the podcast. So why don't you introduce yourself, Kellie?
Oh, thank you, beautiful. My name is Kellie Moses. I'm the founder of At Soul Healing with Kellie. It is my beautiful, energetic, emotional business. I'm an energy healer. I'm a mother. Before I'm anything, I'm a mother to my beautiful little boy, Mason. I support women and mothers and some children in letting go and feeling aligned and feeling clear. I think it's normal for people to think that it's a load of, like I have so many people that come to me and are like, does this work? I'm going to try it, but I don't think it's going to work. I think that's normal. But I think we're at a time within, the world and ourselves where, our emotions matter, and having support to be clear is important. It's like easy to become lost and derailed and overwhelmed and dysregulated. So I think, that's a little bit about me and my business.
I always say to people exactly what you sort of touched on. I was like, the work that I do with Kellie it sounds very woo-woo, but it's so deeply rooted in emotions. And I kind of explain to people that, you go to a therapist and you talk a lot about how you think about emotions or how you think about situations, whereas the work you do is more like the physical manifestation of those emotions. Is kind of like how I explain to people how it's different to say like going to a traditional therapist or counselor and doing like talk therapy. It's not like that. Of like you are kind of being like, hey, like this is where you're holding this in your body and this is what's being blocked and this is how we can work through it in a different way. So it has a different sort of approach to talk therapy because like my followers know I'm medicated. So I obviously do like traditional medicine for mental health issues. I'm medicated for both depression and ADHD. Then I see a psychologist. So I do normal therapy and then I have you. So I kind of have like a three-pronged approach. I'm across the entire board when it comes to being my best, happiest, healthiest self. And I think they all work really beautifully together. But yeah, when I tell my personal friends about you, they're like, what the fuck do you guys even do like in a session? And I'm like, well, it's very hard to describe actually. So I did ask Kellie, I was like, would you do like a really quick little like energetic heal on me or like a muscle test at the end of this session so people can kind of see it working in action? Because I always say to people, I'm like, I wish I could record my like an appointment with Kellie so you guys could like understand what I'm talking about. I've done like a few journeys with Kellie. So we've done like one that was just on like a general, my chakras and like what was blocking me. Then we've done a wealth journey. And I think that's really cool to bring up, because just on my stories yesterday, I was doing a reflection of like where I've like how much I've improved in the last year financially, in terms of like just such a difference. And I feel like a lot of that has come from like my opinions on myself and making money, which is like something that I worked with Kellie on, is like how I think about myself as a money maker, which was really cool sort of journey to do with her. And then we just finished doing, it's called Womb Spiral, and it's pretty much looking at everything you hold in your womb and in your like female parts. And we kind of did that to get me ready for dating and being a single woman, and looking at how I view my masculine energy, my feminine energy. And it was really, really cool. But I think before we go into like exactly what is energetic healing, like, why don't you tell us, Kellie, like, how did you get into this? Because you didn't always start as someone who was like alternatively spiritual.
Oh, how did I get into this? Such a good question, my love. Look, my whole life I've been connected to source, God, universe. You know, I had an imaginary friend when I was little who I now know was a spirit. My mum is psychic. She is, you know, she hears. So when I fell pregnant with Mason, I rang her to tell her that I was pregnant. She's like, I already know. I heard a voice in the park. You're having a boy. So she's definitely gifted, and I believe has passed it on to me. When I was younger, it showed up a lot in like knowing and dreams. And, you know, when my grandpa died, I heard a voice and I sat up and I was like 13, and I said to my mum, you know, Pa's died, and he had. It really started to awaken, I guess you could say, in terms of me trusting my knowing when my dad died. So the night he died, my brother and I had decided that we'd write his eulogy together, and I heard a knocking at the window and woke up in the dark and channeled his whole eulogy in like racehorse language, which is his language, in the dark. So I think then I started to really tune into my spirituality and connect with spirit and source. And I was a primary school teacher for 17 years, and I was religious education coordinator, assistant principal, and then I was running retreats for 116 schools. So I was doing a lot of work with women around spirituality. Yeah, there became a point, and most women's life, it's motherhood, where I had Mason and decided that I wanted to create more flexibility and freedom. But also I really found out very early that there wasn't enough emotional support for women, and there was nowhere for me to go when I had Mason to be held and to work through everything that had come up for me, which was a lot. A lot of my trauma had started to come up, which happens in motherhood. And, you know, psychologists had a wait list of 6 months, and everyone around me was like, you know, you'll be okay. Maybe you can take some medication. And I was like, but I've got so much coming up. There was nowhere for me to go and be held, and there's nowhere I could take him as well, like to go and have a session. So I created it. I guess we create, you know, what we need. We create what we need that doesn't exist. And when I had him, I had some things that happened in my career that pushed me out of my career and into believing in myself to start a business. So I was teaching 2 days a week, and I knew that I could do it, but I was so scared. And I found the spiral, and I went through 3 times, and then I became a practitioner, and then I birthed my business and continued to expand and help other women expand. And but it was really scary.
I think it's really interesting as well to have a religious background, because like I am religious. I've obviously shared that with my audience many times. I've grown up religious. I'm still practicing religious. Like I still go to church, and I get a lot of people who are kind of like, well, you know, doing any type of like other spiritual work, like that's, you know, devil work, that's spirit. And I think you and I have had many conversations about this as someone who is also like deeply religious, about how there is a beautiful harmony between the two spaces, and that you know, when you sometimes say source or universe, in my head I just think God, like because it is the same thing. Yeah. It's from the same source, from the same thing, and I really love that. And I just wanted to touch on that in this episode, because I knew that would be something people would bring up straight away. And
Yeah, I think it's so important to bring that up because a lot of my clients say that to me, you know, what if I do a session with you and then it's opening me up to like a different realm, or should I not be doing this, or is this wrong? I have a Master's of Religious Education and Theology from the Australian Catholic University. I've studied spirituality and, you know, God is within us and divinity is within us, you know, and Christ is within you and Christ consciousness is within you, and helping people to tune into a connection of their own divinity and their own knowing and worshipping like ourselves and being able to pour into ourselves rather than looking for something outside of ourselves, you know. And I very much believe in God. I very much believe in Jesus and Mary. And for me, it was like the church can be within me. I don't feel the need anymore to go and sit and pray. You know, I'm a minister of the Eucharist, so I can go and give communion out if I choose to. Like, I have deep religious roots with the Catholic Church, and I've been on pilgrimages all over Italy. Like, I'm so connected to it. But also I'm at a point where I think most people are, as we grow older, that it can also just exist as oneness and divinity within self.
Yeah, I just think there is a beautiful space for both. And I have enjoyed, exploring, you know, a new kind of world that I'd never really previously been into. For a bit of backstory, Kellie and I met at a mother's retreat. So a lot of you would have seen last year when I was in the pits of my postpartum depression, I went on a mother's retreat down just outside of Sydney that was run by Kellie and another influencer, Marcia, who I'd only been following for a little bit. Like, I actually hadn't had that much interaction with Marcia, and I saw the ad for the retreat and I was just like, you know what, I'm going to book it. I booked it on the spot the day that it was launched. And I was like, I don't know really anything about these women or what's happening at this retreat, but I am so desperate and so lost that at this point I will take anything, like any type of place to go and connect with other women and just feel like I'm not alone. Sign me up. I don't care the cost. Sign me up. And that was a really beautiful experience. There were lots of women there. How many of us? There was like 18 of us or something, wasn't there?
Yeah, it was 18.
Yeah. And all the women were in one way or another in a similar place in terms of just feeling a bit lost. And, you know, there were different circumstances why that was the case. Like, there were other women there with postpartum depression, but other women who had other things they were going through. And Kellie kind of held space for us all, and we did like 3 days of, you know, a lot of work, a lot of journaling, a lot of sharing emotions, a lot of, you know, Kellie doing energetic work on us. And it kind of transformed me those 3 days. I was like, I feel so clear for the first time in a long time. And then when we were there, Kellie was like, you know, like, if you want to do like more work with me, like, just reach out to me or whatever. And I went home and I was like, you know what, like, I do want to do more work. Like, I feel like I'm onto something here. And then we did, I don't know, 6 months of like lots and lots of work.
I think you came spiral first,
yeah, and that was like a really beautiful experience. But I guess people are probably wondering, like, what is energetic work? Like, what does it look like? What is it that you're actually doing? Because like, we've done stuff around like how you hold emotions, and then I've done stuff with you around feminine, masculine energy. And then we've done lots of inner child work, which for me, I feel like as a mother has been the most transformational, is all the inner child stuff that we have done together, which is a big thing for me because I had quite a chaotic childhood. Maybe you can talk a bit about more like what it actually is.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think like, you know, within our bodies, to put it really simply, we have like our energetic body, we have our emotional body, we have our mental, spiritual and physical body. So, you know, when your physical body's off, you're like, oh, I might need to go for a massage or go to the chiro or go and, you know, go for a walk. When your mental body's off, usually people go to a GP and get a mental health plan and are like, I need a psychologist, I need a therapist, you know. And I guess lately it's becoming more mainstream to look at alternative ways of managing our spiritual and our energetic bodies and our emotional bodies, because as women, you know, and men are tuned in as well, but as women, like, we are emotional beings. We are supposed to be emotional beings. We are watery, emotional, magical, feminine women. We're not supposed to suppress our emotion. You know, it's okay to be able to feel it all. So we have an energetic field, we have an auric field, and with energy healing, it's like I guess if you wanted to put it simply, it's me connecting to source, me connecting to divinity and God, oneness, universe. With Reiki, I'm able to connect to that and bring that up through my body, through my womb, and pour it into my clients to help them clear blockages or stagnancy or places that feel heavy. With emotional clearing, energetic healing, I'm able to muscle test, feel into people's energy, open up space, feel what's blocked, test what's blocked, and help them to use breath work and clearing and release statements to let go. So I have so many clients that say, oh, I feel so much lighter, I feel tingly, I feel better, I feel like I'm able to let go. I also do a lot of subconscious inner repatterning work as well. I guess what I do is the whole 5 bodies, but it's based on your energetic realm, if that makes sense. And, I guess motherhood teaches you so. I can remember when I first had Mason thinking like, oh my God, my energy is so low, like I'm not sleeping and I'm exhausted and I'm trying to eat and he's crying and I've got all these feelings and emotions and I'm trying to hold him. And motherhood's a really fast initiation into learning that you have to harness your energy, because it's, as a mother, you're setting the energetic emotional climate of the home. Yeah. So it's usually women, when they transition from maiden to mother, start to become increasingly aware of the impact that their energy levels have on themselves and their children. But a lot of women work with me as well before they have children around, we have to be at a certain frequency to be able to vibrate at love, to be able to attract what we desire. When you're sick and you're low vibrational and you feel awful and you're just like hating on life, it's like I help people to feel better and feel clearer and raise their vibration and feel less stuck and to call in their desires and to get their mindset clear and to let go of trauma and let go of the past and to create new pathways and realities and connect to their vision and purpose.
I think a really cool thing that you sort of taught me, and this is the way that I kind of look at it, is that I now understand that energy is a form of currency that we use
Definitely.
in everyday life. And I'd never really thought about that before doing work with you. And like a currency we use with each other, currency we use with the universe, like the way you, spend your energy, the way you receive energy, that really impacts your day-to-day life. And I feel like a lot of the work we have done has kind of cemented that in my head. And then when people say to me, like, which is something I get all the time now, like, oh my God, like I can just look at you and there's something's different about you. You look so alive and so that, and I'm like, it's because I understand now of how I spend my energy and how
Definitely.
that sort of transaction works. Because before I think it's the same as like with money. If you treat money like, oh, I've got all the money in the world and it doesn't matter how or where I spend my money and there's no value to it or whatever, well, you're going to have financial difficulties because you're spending with outside your means. You're not, using your money wisely. You're not using your money in a way that it will come back to you in the best way. And I've sort of learned that now with energy. And I think before I understood that, I would overspend my energy big time on things that didn't need it. I wouldn't know how to set boundaries with my energy in terms of saying like, actually, I don't have the space for that right now. I can't do that right now because, at the moment it's over here, or I need it for my kids. I need it for my work. I need it for whatever I need it right now. And I would also let others not give me their energy back, if that makes sense. Like I would feel like I was pouring into people all the time and I was getting no vibrations back, or it'd just be a misalignment.
Witnessing your personal evolution, you've learned how to cultivate and harness your energy. But what people are feeling from you lately, which I fucking love, is your life force, is your feminine juice, your life force, and that's the womb work. Like people often say to me like, oh, I just want to like, I don't know, I just want to work with you. I want to feel you. And that's our feminine life force. So when our cups are empty, like this is gate 2 womb, but when we're depleted and we're drained and we've exhausted and we've, haven't set boundaries and we've shared or leaked our energy everywhere, we start to feel resentful and dry and depleted.
Yep.
But when we cultivate our energy and set boundaries and harness our energy and pour into ourselves, our cups are full, and then we can pour from our overflow into our creations.
There's a quote I put on a video, and lots of people love it. Lots of people say it to me all the time, where I said, if I can create life, why can't I create a beautiful life? Like if I can have a baby and I can physically grow that and birth that from my body, I have the power to do that with anything in my life, including building a beautiful, happy life. And that was a realization that I got through our work of like, I can actually do really incredible things, and I have the energy and the power within me to do that. Like I'm a woman, it's limitless. Like that is the job of a woman, is to be a creator. Why do I think that only works with like birthing a baby? I can create so many different things, and I know I have that power inside me because I birthed 2 babies and I've seen it happen. Like there is no reason why I can't. Everything is energy. Like that's a science. It's all based in that. And I think when you kind of stop putting that in the woo-woo category and start being like, oh no, like of course, like there are ways that we interact and whatever, like of course you're going to have that realization. And I think like so many mothers, like I came to you so burnt out, so depleted, and you were just like, you're operating so strongly, just permanent masculine. You're never having any feminine time, which I think a lot of people think that motherhood is a feminine energy task, but it is a massive masculine energy task because you are making decisions, you're being strong for someone else. You're like, it's a very masculine role, which was an interesting thing for me to learn as well, because I feel like not that motherhood is marketed to us, but the way that it is marketed sort of to us through society is like, oh, it's deeply feminine and you walk around with a baby on your boob and like, I don't know, you dance and everyone just has coffees together and you're just chatting. But the reality of motherhood is it's not like that. It's lots of hard work. It's lots of sacrifice. It's lots of, giving everything, being a protector, being a provider for someone else. Like if you're breastfeeding, you're providing for a baby. That's a masculine energy to be in. And then you really taught me the idea of like, you need to like not always be in that side of your brain and in that side and come back into the softer side, because I feel like that's why I was very angry and very jaded and very frustrated, is I was like, I feel like I'm just giving all the time and I'm not touching anything to do with like, the softer, because explain a bit about the energies, like the masculine and feminine energy.
Yeah, I will. But before I do, there's something that you said that was so beautiful that I just want to explain. You said, if I'm a woman and I can create life, I can create any life I desire, I can create anything. So what you've tuned into is that your womb is connected to the cosmic womb of the earth. So we can create from a place of pure potentiality. Like, that's the frequency that I love that you've embodied so beautifully in that. So I had to say that. Yeah. Masculine and feminine. So within all of us, we have masculine and feminine energies, and our desire is to bring them into sacred union. We want to have perfect harmonious balance with our masc and fem. You see a woman in her masculine energy when she's like doing, creating, all the systems, the structure. Motherhood can be hugely, organizing the schedules, the lists, the mental load and the doing all day. The feminine side is like our surrendering and our softening and our trusting and our ability to open. And it's not like some people say to me like, oh, if I like put a dress on and like do some dancing and connect to my body, it's like not a practice. Embodying your feminine is about being able to deeply surrender and soften and trust, and not feel like. A lot of women, when they work with me and they start to bring their masc and fem into balance, are like, oh, like I can rest without feeling guilty, or I don't have to be always on and always, because that's where we start to move into burnout. I think for a lot of women, we've had to do, a lot of clients of mine work with like feeling safe enough to be in our feminine, feeling safe enough to surrender, safe enough to trust, safe enough to let go. And often we look for a man to hold us, to create that safety and provide and step up so he can hold us so then we can surrender. but it's about having your own inner mask hold you so that you can start to feel, I can provide, I've got security, I've got stability, and my inner mask has got me, and my inner feminine can now start to like surrender and play and trust and embody whatever she wants to and create and be in her magic. So, yeah, that's a little bit about the both. But even within ourselves, my inner masculine starts to get angry at me if I'm too, you can feel when you're out of balance.
And I think like what you're talking about before, the funny thing is like when you're like, oh, people think it's like putting on a dress or whatever. Like when I first started working with you and you're like, oh, your feminine energy is so neglected. It's like, what do you mean? I'm the girliest girl of anyone I know. Like I love makeup. I love dresses. Everything is pink. Like I'm so girly. I don't have any problem with my femininity. And then you like, yeah, kind of explained to me like that's not what feminine energy is. Like it's not like a physical manifestation like that. It is about, letting go, saying no, holding, like letting yourself be in your own realm, trusting, surrendering, which are all emotions I really, really used to struggle with so strongly. And then I would find the masculine energies so easy to touch into, especially I feel like I grew up very independent. I had quite like a interesting childhood where there was a lot of stuff going on. So I spent a lot of my youth always being in my masculine and looking out for myself. And then I guess that just creeped into an adult. And then as a mother, I am very maternal. I love my children. I love being a mother. But that, like I said, is a very masculine energy. So I was just constantly in this like, sort of like, and that's how I think of when I think of being too far in my masculine, I think of me being like, uptight, like, let's go, like, blah, 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 which is fine when there are times in your life you have to be like that. But I was always like that. And then I couldn't understand why I felt so angry at the world and so angry at everything until you're like, you are not taking any time to be soft, to be gentle, to surrender, to say no, to hold space for yourself. You are just never doing that. So, of course, you're going to be so worked up all the time.
Depleted, and there's healthy masculine and healthy feminine, toxic toxic femme, unhealthy. Like it's like, you can be in your masculine energy and be structuring and moving forward, and it doesn't have to be in that like, that like hyper independent. When you see a woman and she's just like boundaries, doesn't trust anybody, shut down, hyper independent, go, doesn't ask for help, burns out. It's like corporate world, corporate world is the best example of that masculine energy that doesn't serve a woman. But I think a lot of women come to me and say like, I'm so embodied in my feminine. Like I self-pleasure and I wear dresses and I dance and I know how to move my hips, and it's like, but are you like, I can be dressed like a man and still embody my feminine energy because it's about my deep connection to my womb and my sacral and my magnetism and my pleasure and my overflow and my trust and I'm not controlling, I'm not forcing, I'm I'm in my that juicy feminine. It's a different vibration. It's a different frequency.
As well, not a female. Like men also have both masculine and feminine energy, and it's important for men to also have a balance in both those energies. I think sometimes today you see that thing where it's like men need to be like the alpha in their masculine and they need to have a woman that they just take care of and blah, 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 blah. And it's really interesting the work that I've done with you where you're like, no, like that needs to be a harmony in both people in a relationship, and you both need to have elements where you're, one person is being in their masculine, one is being in the feminine, and that's how you get true unity and like sort of that flowing and
polarity.
And I found that like so interesting. I said it before, but I feel like the most transformational work you and I have done is inner child work and discussing a lot about the inner child. And actually from the work that I've done with you, I then went to my therapist and was like, hey, I've talked to my therapist about you. I've like, I've got like this life coach and it's more holistic. But, one thing we've really been talking a lot about is like inner child. And that led me to then do with my therapist, like a lot of work around like attachment styles and things, that a therapist like will work with you on. And because I didn't realize how deeply neglected my inner child was until I started having my own kids. And especially as a woman who had daughters, watching them do things, and then I would get really emotional watching, like, say my daughter play with a baby doll or something like that. I would start, like, I'd have to go to the bathroom and just have a cry in the bathroom, and I'd be so confused of like, why is this so triggering to me? Or like, you know, even little things like, and my mum was incredible in doing things of like getting, you know, creating. My parents were amazing at Christmas magic, okay? No matter what happened in my childhood, my family was the Christmas family, okay? Like my dad was the Christmas man. We always had these beautiful, amazing Christmases. But then I would find myself, you know, staying up late to do Christmas stuff so that, you know, when Rosie would wake up in the morning, there'd be a Christmas tree up already or whatever it was that I was doing. And I'd get really sad and really feel really uncomfortable with the whole thing. And I was like, what is this? Why do I feel this? And then when we started doing work together and you started talking about inner child work, I was like, oh my God, this is so confronting. And I remember being in a session with you being like, I don't want to do this because this is like scary to me, when you were like, I want you to think of your inner child and then I want you to tell her that she's safe and you've got her and whatever. And I remember just being so emotional of like, oh my God, like that's so confronting. And I shared a technique you shared with me once of, and I still do it. I have a picture next to my bed. It's a picture of me and my sister. We're on like a little trike together. And you were like, I want you to put a picture of yourself next to your bed. And every morning I want you to wake up and look at that picture of you as a little girl. And just like you would say to your daughters in the morning, like, good morning, I love you, I want you to say that to you as a child, because you can always hold space for that person and that part of you. And I remember the first couple of times I did that, I couldn't even get the words out of my mouth. Like when I would look at the picture, I couldn't say it because I just get so emotional and just be so like, oh my God, that's really confronting to look at me as a little girl and to give myself that grace of like, you are amazing. I love you. I've got you. I'm going to protect you always. But now it's like one of my favorite things to do in the morning. I love waking up and looking at that photo and being like, good morning. I love you. Let's have a great day. It just makes you feel so
connected
and connected.
So beautiful.
And I feel like when like I just did recently an episode on body image and a lot of people were like, oh, it was so beautiful to hear you talk about it that way. And I think a lot of that comes from inner child and realizing like the way that I talk to myself, I'm talking to my inner child that way as well. I'm talking to that little girl and telling her all those thoughts that I have. And I think realizing that we always have someone inside of us that wants to, because your inner child is sort of like the energy in you that is curious and wants to play and wants to be protected and be looked after, and like that feeling of like when you're sick and then you might have a partner that comes and like brings you tea in bed or whatever, that's your inner child being like, oh, I feel so like loved and cared for and whatever. And that never goes away. And I think that's why like so many mothers say this, like when they have their own kids, the magic comes back in the world. And it's like, well, that's because you're connecting with your own inner child and being like, oh, I remember like when I was a kid, like I loved this. So then when you're doing it for your kids, you're like, oh, it feels magical again. And I think a lot of stuff that I had difficulties with as a child, I'm now learning that I can go back and heal some of those wounds through my own.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Kids.
Yeah, I was going to say when I was listening to like. Yes, a lot of women say like motherhood and connecting, you know, to that like brings the magic alive again. But for a lot of women, it's actually really fucking deeply triggering as well, because their inner child feels really triggered and she feels abandoned and she feels not seen and like she wasn't enough and she wasn't listened to and she wasn't, you know, she wasn't given the space and the freedom to play. Like a lot of women struggle to play with their children. So, yeah, a lot of the work I do is finding the kind of hooks and emotions that were anchored in childhood and helping people repattern it and clear it and move it through their bodies and let go to be able to get their inner child to feel loved and seen and valued. So, yeah, something I say to my clients a lot is if they voice note me and they're in a trigger, I'll say, like, close your eyes and tell me, like, how old is this part of you? And it's something I do with myself a lot, you know, like how old is this part of me right now that's triggered or that's acting up or that's like, you know, upset. And some often will be like, oh, she's like 16, you know, and what does she need? What does she need to hear? But yeah, inner child work is foundational to healing as a woman and as a mother, and being able to, you know, when you respond, you react sometimes to your children, you're really triggered and you don't know why. Like it's often your inner child will be in a trigger or feeling angry. Often when siblings fight, when a mother comes to me and she has siblings that fight, you know, often it will be her inner child that wasn't protected or had an older brother or older sister that was, you know, it's like so our childhood plays out so much in who we are today. And, you know, being able to have the opportunity to work with somebody that can hold space for you where you feel safe to deep dive and clear that up and connect to her is just so, it's so beautiful. And yeah, like body image, like you wouldn't say to yourself as a 7-year-old, like your bum looks awful in that, or you're fat. You would never say that to your own children. So it's like teaching women to extend that same grace and compassion and self-love that they have a little girl within them who is worthy of feeling enough and loved and safe. It's really powerful.
I was actually talking to a friend who I referred to Kellie, and she's done work with Kellie now too. And I feel like the inner child work was like the key for me. Like once we touched into that, it unlocked so much stuff that I was like, oh my God, I've been holding so much in my childhood. And like when we would do work and then you'd say, what age is this feeling coming from? Like I would see the same ages coming up over and over again. And I didn't realize how much stuff had been set into me as a child. And then I just kind of thought like, oh, well, once you're an adult and you can't be sad about that anymore, because that was like as a kid, like get over it. It was, 20 years ago or whatever. Like that is the mindset I kind of had. And then, like having my children kind of just brought everything back up, because even things that I experienced, like I'll look at my kids and then think like, well, how could that have happened to me at that age? Or how could that, like, whatever the thing is, or like, how could I have felt that way when I'm looking at my children and thinking like, oh, I just, they're so amazing and they're so beautiful and so perfect. Like, obviously I'm a mother, I'm biased, and I think my children are amazing. But, you feel that as a mom. You just feel this like I love this being, and I've, grown them and birthed them and cared for them, provided for them. And I just would never want them to feel that way. And that can be especially confronting for people who have gone through stuff as a child. And I feel like once I did that inner child work and connected with myself, that's what led me to getting like my ADHD diagnosis, to getting my autism diagnosis, to like really reflecting on how I operated as a mother. And like that was something that deeply unlocked everything to me. And like, I'm not saying by any means it was easy. It's probably like doing inner child work with you is one of the most confronting types of therapy, I put that in quotations, I've ever done. Like even compared to traditional work I've done, like it was very hard to go through, but it was the most transformational for me. And I think it's something that like a lot of women not neglect, but they feel like they can't go to someone and say like, hey, I actually really want to talk more about what happened to me as a kid, or I want to look into why I'm acting that way. Like, is it because of this in my past or whatever it is? And so they kind of neglect it. And then I'm like, no, like so much is rooted in that.
Yeah, I think space as well, like mothers love the spiral. I love taking mums through the spiral because it's 8 weeks, it's transformational, but it's fast. Like I think we've got this idea that, like there's me as a mum and I'm like yelling at my kids and I'm reactive and I'm triggered and I'm like not being the best version of me. But if I was to dive deep and do that work, it's going to take like 16 years and I just don't have the space. Yeah. Whereas I love this work because so many people have phenomenal transformational results in a short amount of time. Like, it's you don't have to, like 0 to 7 is when a child's, belief systems, they're like little sponges, they absorb everything, but the way that we show up in the world now is based on our conditioning and our beliefs, but not all of them are real and not all of them are serving you. So you don't have to continue to show up in the world how you are now just because you have been programmed and conditioned to believe something doesn't mean that it's real. So the way you're reacting or getting triggered or responding as a woman, as a mother, as a wife, as a business owner, as you, we can work with that and change that by working with the hooks when that was anchored in from your inner child or from your teenage self.
But even when you said like about the idea of like, oh, well, it takes so much time. And yes, it's not something that you just wake up overnight and you feel better and you never have to worry about that thing. Like I think self-work is always something you're working on and it's always something that you're moving towards. But I think like honestly looking at me, if you compared me, even the way I physically looked 12 months ago to now, and I'm not talking about weight, like even if you just look at like my eyes, my energy, the things like to me, I'm like in 12 months, I truly feel like a different person. And like I had my business manager say to me, she's like, you are a different person. She was like, if you had said to me 12 months ago, this is who you'd be today, she's like, I would have been like, there's no way. Like you are so different. The way your brain works is different. And
when I think about the version of you, and I love like speaking about the versions of ourselves because we're constantly evolving. You know, I've had like 80 versions of me already. But when I think about the version of you that I met at the retreat, and her vibration and her frequency and her energetic, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. And I look at you today, it's like, it's not just a physical glow up. It's not just like, oh, I've, lost weight or, oh, it's like it's your auric and energetic field. Your vibration has changed and your vibration's higher. Your self-worth is higher and you have really stepped into your power and become more magnetic, but also more assured of yourself and confident and believing in yourself and more confident with speaking your truth, and I watched one of your TikToks the other day. I shared it on my Insta and it was like, people will say to you like, me, you've changed, and people don't, really, some people don't love that and they don't love women growing and evolving and changing and coming to the power and setting boundaries, speaking their truth. But for you, I think that has been the work that we've done around that has been a huge part of you being able to be like, right, this is where I'm going. This is what I'm creating. This is who I am.
See that in like a lot of the changes in relationships in my life. And I'm not just talking about my marriage. I'm like a lot of my friendships have transformed because I stepped into a place where I was like, I kind of had an idea of like, well, all this stuff has happened to me and it's out of my control. And yes, the things that happen to us, we can't control that. And unfortunately, sometimes really shit stuff happens to us, but we can control what we do with those experiences. And I think that's where
we can control how we respond and how we react to them. And that's where we take our power.
And I think that's what I was missing the mark on, of like I was just always making myself small, always being like, oh, well, of course this crappy thing like happened to me, or like, of course people would treat me that way because I'm this or whatever, like I'm not good enough, I'm not whatever the story.
But that's like low vibrational victim, low vibrational victim mindset, right? A lot of us like, so many sit there before start to do the inner work.
Yeah. And then when I realized, I'm like, I actually can say like, actually, I don't want to be treated like that. Actually, I deserve this. Actually, no, whatever. When I stepped into that, it was, and we've had this conversation before, it was interesting to see so many people in my life kind of be like, oh, hang on a minute. Like, no, you've always been this person to me and I don't want you to be this new version of yourself. And watching friendships and relationships that had been like decades long in my life melt away because it's like, well, actually when I'm not serving you, you don't want me around and that's not what I'm looking for. And in saying that, I still have friendships. Like I still have girls from year 8 in high school that I'm still friends with to this day, message them regularly, go see them. Like it's not like every single person in my life just disappeared. Like I still have really long connections and relationships, but it was just really interesting to see the shift in my life. But then realizing once those people left, I had all this extra, this is like, I guess on, energy is and energy is currency. I suddenly had all this extra energy to invest in other friendships that have been so beautiful and served me, more than I could have ever imagined, especially in a huge transformational time.
It's it's really common when as we do this work and as our vibration raises and as we start to step into our power, that organically relationships around us that are no longer serving us will fall away because they're also not at the same vibration, and that does, like I always say to my clients, your no creates space for your yes. So in you being like, actually, I'm just going to let that fall away, then you're like, okay, so what am I calling in? What do I want my relationships and friendships to feel like? To be reciprocal and beautiful and easy and have more flow and more aligned. So yeah, it's like, you see it a lot with women when they move through a transition. Things start to shift and people start to fall away. But yeah, I think it's really important. Like you and I have spoken a lot about setting boundaries with love, and the people that love you will be okay. The people that love me when I'm like, I'm sorry, it's a no. I love you, but it's a no. I come at capacity or loop back to me a little bit. Whereas the people who, can take advantage of you from not having boundaries, they're the people that will feel triggered.
That is something that I use every single day, was the idea that you taught me that you can say no with love. You can say no with positive energy. Like no doesn't automatically have to be negative, angry, bad. You can just say to someone like, I love you, but it's a no right now. I love you. I respect you. Thank you for inviting me to dinner, but I've got to say no right now because of whatever your reason is. Whereas I used to always associate the word no with negative, bad, yucky. And that was something that made it really hard for me to tell people no, because I just would be like, oh, but then I'm not being nice and doing stuff, but then and verbalizing it. You sound a bit crazy at first by saying to someone, like you feel a bit crazy being like, I love you so much, but no. Like it feels a bit like, whoa, that's a bit disjointing. But once I started doing
it's like with love. Yeah, like with love it's a no. But I think it's because we're, conditioned as little girls to be people pleasers. Like, go and hug Uncle Sasa, go and say yes to this play date or be a good girl and do that and say yes. Or, it's like we're not conditioned as little girls to be able to say no. But when a woman comes into her full unapologetic feminine expression, like gate 1 of womb, we only open when we trust, and it's okay to not want to open. It's okay to be like, actually, that's a no for me, and I'm going to honour that. And when we honour that and we don't self-abandon, that's when we start to feel more like we can trust ourselves.
I think, it really transformed me realising that, I don't have to say yes to everything and I can say no, and also understanding that people who love me will respect me saying no. And that's not saying like someone can't be disappointed if I say like, if they're like, oh, like I really miss you, like let's go get dinner or something. And then I have to say like, no, I can't. And, being honest, like I used to never be honest about why I couldn't go and do something. Like if I was feeling like, oh, I'm burnt out, I would make up some big excuse of like why. And now I'm just like, hey, I'm so sorry. And I know this is probably going to be like disappointing for you to hear, but I've just got to say no because I just don't have it in me. Like I just need to be at home tonight and just by myself watching TV and not doing anything special. And I'm really sorry and I'll make it up to you and I love you and I'm sorry if this is disappointing to you, but I've just got to say like no for now. And that was a really scary concept. And of course there are times where people are like, oh, I'm really disappointed. Like I wanted to see you or I wanted to do this or whatever. But at the end of the day, the people who love you will respect that and understand, thanks for letting me know, like let's try and organize something else another time. Like I hope you're okay. And I respect that you got to look after you. And when you do that, you kind of realize, oh, that people are okay. People are going to be okay if I say no and disappoint them by saying no. It's not going to be the end of the world. I'm not going to end up alone and dying alone. They're just going to say, okay, no worries. Like, that's great. We'll do it another time. I'm a little sad, but we'll talk about it.
It's how you create your reality and it's how you cultivate your energy and it's how you step into your power. Like if you're saying yes to everything and you're burnt out and you're exhausted and you're resentful and you're depleted, you're not creating your reality. You're not living a life by design. You're living a life by default. Like I should go to that dinner. I should do that. I should be a good friend. But at the root of any role that we take on, the people pleaser, the good girl, the overgiver, whatever role it is, at the root of it is abandonment.
Yeah.
So it's like, if I don't say yes to everybody and if I don't do all the things that everyone else wants me to do, what if they don't want to be my friend anymore? What if they abandon me and they don't love me and I'm alone?
Yeah.
So the deep work with it all is starting to work with the particular roles. And then, you know, like, even listening to you now, it's like in my brain, I love you, but I'm also like, yeah, but you don't need to give them a reason, actually. Yeah. Also, if you don't want to, like, the next level of your evolution will be like, I love you. I love you. I love you, but it's a no. Loop back to me. Do you know, it's like, sometimes we feel like we have to over-explain, and I do this all the time, like give reasons for why, you know. It's like sometimes it's okay just to say no without a reason as well.
And I think when you do that and then you see the reactions of people, you start to really quickly be like, oh, okay, like, wow, that's really interesting, like how you responded to that no. Like if I'm not always saying to you, it's really interesting to see how you start treating me or how you react to me. Or, you know, I had a friend that when I started saying no, they started acting out and excluding and being, you know, nasty.
Manipulating.
Yeah, things like that.
Shadowy.
Really interesting to be like, oh, when I'm not always saying yes to you, you actually don't value me. You only value me when I say yes. And that is not a friendship or a relationship I want in my life to continue, because I want people to value me if I say yes or no. Just like I respect and value my friends when they say yes to me or no to me. Because to me, I'm like, well, friendship's not transactional. It's not something where it's like, well, I'm your friend because you're giving me this. It's I'm your friend because I love you. Yeah. And watching someone not respect that was really interesting journey for me to kind of,
especially when we're like raising children, like, you know, it's their children don't learn from words, they learn through actions, you know. And I love how strong Mason is in his no. I love how he'll be like, that's a no, or that person's got strange energy, I don't want to talk to them, I don't want them near me, I want to move spots. Or like, I love when a woman can be so firm in her no unapologetically, how it ripples down into their children, you know. And that's what our children need for the future.
We teach kids these days to be so strong in their no. Like, I know so many mothers that say to me, oh, if my child doesn't want to hug someone, I don't make them. Like, and I will stand up for them and I will say to, like, you know, this relative, like, no, they're not hugging you. They've said no. Like, you respect that or don't have contact with them. And then I said to a few friends, I'm like, well, why don't you have that same energy with yourself? Why is it your child, you're allowed to say, no, they don't want to hug you. No, they don't want to do that. And they're allowed.
Do you know what the answer is? The answer is because their inner child has to do. The inner child's been conditioned to believe that they should override their no to be a good girl, to be accepted, so that they're not abandoned.
Exactly. But I have said that to a few friends and watched their face be like, oh, like, why don't I allow that energy for myself if I'm so steadfast on teaching it to my child? And that's what I mean by, like, so much of the stuff we've done, I've been like, whoa, because that's a question you've said to me, was like, okay, well, if you hold that boundary for your children, why won't you hold that boundary for yourself? Whoa, light bulb, brain explosion on the spot, kind of being like, that's actually a really good point. Why don't I do that? Like, and that's what I find we have done so much work on just, figuring out, like, okay, well, why can you do this for others, but you can't hold that same space for yourself? And I feel like generally as mothers, that's a big problem for a lot of us, of like, oh, if I'll do this in 2 seconds for my husband or for my kids, but when it comes to me, I would never. And it's looking at but why? Because if you did that stuff for you, you could probably give more to those people around you. And I think once you unlocked that in me, it just opened up so many doors. But it did also open up, like, this is something you and I talk about all the time, of like, when you start doing that work and stepping into those things, how much it triggers others. Even online, like when I would do stuff unapologetically, watching people online be like, oh my God, like, bah, 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 bah. And then I'd be like, well, like, let's sit down and actually, like, break this down. What are you upset about? Like, what are you actually upset about that I'm doing? Because I don't think this has anything to do with me. And I think this has everything to do with your own guilt, your own shame, the own things you've been telling yourself. Because I know that I'm a great mum. I know that I am a great friend. I know I'm all these things. But because I'm putting I'm not being, self-sacrificing and selfish 24/7, you're telling me that this is bad or whatever.
Well, it's their conditioning. Yeah, they're projecting their own inner world. Like when people are triggered, they're just projecting their own inner world onto somebody else. You know, it's not usually about the other person. It's usually about their internal world and what's going on. It was interesting, actually. I was watching, because I can't not help feel energy and I can't help not feel stuff, especially when they're one of my clients. But I was watching, it was like, okay, I need to join TikTok. Yeah. Like, you know, 42, not in the TikTok world, but on the other day I was like, right, Kelly. But I was watching one of your TikToks on people's comments on money around lip filler, and I was like watching it all and I was getting triggered. Yeah. Because I was like, who are these women? Like, why are they believing this? Like, I just need to like do a collective clearing around, like I could feel myself being, because I'm so passionate about, you know, women being able to be in their power and spend their money on whatever makes them feel good, and like, but it was interesting feeling the threads around, you know, women's perceptions on other women. You know, women get so triggered around other women, but that's sisterhood wounding. Like, that's a whole other podcast. But yeah, it just means they've got so much more work to do.
I can say this because I've kind of hinted it, especially on subscriptions. But Kelly and I are really hoping in Sydney this year to do some type of event together. Like, I want to get a bunch of mums together in Sydney and have some morning tea and do some sort of work with Kelly around emotions, and kind of like a circle of us, and it be very intimate and very transformational to kind of like just open up that space to like make connection and sort of talk to people. I think it would be a really cool experience. So, yeah, we're hoping to bring that to you guys later in the year. We've been chatting about it and working on it. But I do want to show people what you do, like as like a kind of little clear, and we're starting to run out of time. So are you happy if we do it on camera?
Yeah. I've got a couple of minutes. Yeah, let's clear. Actually, was tuning into your energy this morning before we started, and I was feeling into your throat, actually.
Yeah. Well, I had a thing this morning where I had to say no to someone, and I was feeling really sad because I had to.
It's so funny because I felt the energy of other to self and throat. Like before we jumped on, I was like, oh, there's been something in the last 24 hours around like unapologetic expression, communication. So
I felt bad about the no, and I was like, oh, just stand strong. Like, you've said no, like say no.
And isn't it funny? I just said to you before, your next evolution is like not having to explain. I was like tuned into your field.
I had to lean it like, I love the way you can say no, like it's okay. It's going to be okay.
Yeah. And often, like, even looking at the photo of your little girl, you know, you can say no.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just visualizing a beautiful bubble of light slowly starting to form, anchoring and holding the both of us into divine, sacred, feminine, healing energy. Deep breath in, beautiful, big exhale. And do I have permission to muscle test on your behalf today?
Yes.
Thank you. And feel into the other person. I'm actually going to do a chakra line clear between you and the other person. So feel into the other person. You can feel a lump in your throat. How many emotions is Bella holding her throat chakra around this situation? Just the one. Yeah, it's anxiety. It's like the uncertainty of the future with the situation. Like if I'm strong in my truth. Yeah. So just close your eyes and just tell me, where do you feel anxiety in your body?
In my chest.
Yeah.
And
just bring a hand to your chest. Yeah. Yeah, I can feel it in your hands. Just like bring your hand to your chest. What colour is it and what texture is it in your chest?
It's red. And it's waving.
And I want you just to let it speak. Like, what's the story? What's the anxiety you want to say?
I think there's two people, and I think I just love them and value them so much that saying no is really, really hard for me. Even if I know it's what I have to do, I just get so anxious about disappointing them, and then them being like, oh, well, we don't want to be around her anymore, or we don't want to do this. And so I get very anxious around the idea of like, I find no easy now to say to people I don't have a strong connection to. But if I feel deeply and I value them and love them so much, I still get anxious around the idea of no.
Let me know when you're ready just to shift it from your body.
I'm ready.
Yeah, and I want you to breathe it up out of your chest and out of your mouth while we clear. I'm just going to get you to rub underneath your collarbone is your kidney points. This is where we hold anxiety. I'm just going to get you to close your eyes and breathe out that red. Feels like it's going to breathe out like smoke. I just Deep breath in. Yeah, move your body a little bit. Just wiggle. Yeah. Is that clear? Is that completely clear? Yeah. It's better. And just breathe into your chest deeply. Yeah. What would change if now that anxiety's gone, if you just knew that you could just be like, it's okay to say no, you're safe in your no.
I'd move forward today in confidence, knowing that they're going to be there no matter the no.
Yeah. Breathe into that. Tell your body, I can move forward today in confidence. Yeah. They're going to be there no matter what. They love you. You love them. It's safe. It's safe to honour your no. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's safe to say no. It's important to say no. Is she completely cleared? Do I need to clear anything else, Bella? Do you feel the beautiful bubble of energy slowly dissolve you? Feel your energy come back to you, my love. Mine comes back to me. She integrated physical, energetic, emotional, mental, spiritual. Yeah, like maybe like spiritually you're like 20% integrated. So just journal around like your next spiritual evolution is being able to say no with love to everyone and know that they'll stay. Know that like, yeah, sometimes the more I say no to people that I love, the more that I feel like it's such a respect thing, isn't it? Like, oh, she's so strong in her no.
Yeah.
It's like giving people like to know your boundaries and like to know. It's like what's coming through is like having that consistency and being able to be for people to be able to be like, oh, Bella says no, she's confident, she's clear, she doesn't mean anything, doesn't feel any type of way about it, she's just able to clearly set her boundaries, and people like to know where they stand with you, you know?
I think as well, like this morning I was with this situation afterwards and I was feeling so guilty and so sad, and like the other people were a bit disappointed in me. I was thinking, why can everyone else say no, but then when I say no, it's a big deal? And then I realized I'm like, it's because you don't say no. And so it's so confronting for people because you're always a yes girl. And it's like, well, other people can say no because they have clear boundaries and you respect that. And when you don't set those yourself, people don't expect it. And that's nothing on the other people at all. They are beautiful souls and it's so fair to be disappointed and whatever. It's got nothing to do with them. They're also allowed to have their own reactions and things. Like I love them deeply and I'm sad about it because I hate the feeling of letting people down. But it's like sometimes I need to learn that it's okay and it will be okay and it's not this big catastrophe if I disappoint someone or say no one time.
It's a great integration of womb spiral, babe, because it's like I'm like your yoni. It's like it's safe to say no. Yeah, I trust myself to say no. It's safe to say no.
I think what we did just then, like that was so small, so quick. Like usually when we have a session, it's like an hour for 8 to 10 weeks, and it's like you're real like. You're going into much deeper things and deeper emotions. Like the way it kind of works is Kelly will come to the session and be like, these are the emotions we're looking at today. And like, we're going to look into like, where does that come from in your body, or what pattern do you think when I say like this emotional, whatever it is. But it was just like a good sort of thing to show, like, I love how we give the energy a physical anchor and then do physical exercise of moving it through your body, especially as someone who's had
do a whole we should do a podcast where we root clear. You'd love that too, like when we find the 3 anchors and emotions and like clear the actual like we could do another another whole episode on that. Like,
well, if people want to find you, Kellie, or if they want to follow you
Yes.
and learn more about you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so my Instagram is at Soul Healing with Kellie, and it's so beautiful that we've podcasted because I have spaces for journeys through March and April. So I'm opening that up over the next 2 weeks. So there's spots for womb spiral, spots for the spiral, spots for wealth alchemy, one-on-one spots and group journeys.
Because it is an investment. To do this type of work is definitely an investment, but you do options that are more cost effective for people, like the group journey.
Yeah. The group journeys are going to be 4 women in a journey, and it's going to be just as powerful and transformative, but it means it'll be a reduced price with a payment plan.
And then you do
it's definitely
retreats this year?
Yeah, we've got retreats in April. Yeah, there's a mum's retreat, and then hopefully some more. And also, like, some people just have a chakra clear with me, a one-on-one. Like, we've got a client coming now for an in-person session. But yeah, some people just book like a chakra clear, and that helps to. It's an hour. So that's, you know, I don't open up my calendar. People DM me and we chat, and then I find them a space. You know, it's like, I need to feel people's energy, feel where they're up to, feel if they feel ready and aligned, and how I can support them. But I've got connection calls available via Zoom, and and I feel like we'll do some work later on in the year, which is exciting.
So fascinating, like even just like a follow and just like seeing what you're up to, because like I love some of the stuff you post sometimes, just like some of the quotes or videos or whatever. I'm like, oh, I love that, like I want to share that myself, like I love this or whatever. Especially for people who are a bit like, this is weird, like what that, like I know there are going to be podcasts being like, what was that, like that was really weird. But I feel like even just like a follow opens you up to like just learning more about it without to be in it too much, you know what I mean? But I think it's interesting to see the different options of things that are out there, and the ways that you can work on yourself and develop yourself is so fascinating.
The people that think it's weird, what I would say to you is you are stuck with your internal realm and your internal mind and your internal energetic field forever. So if you could have an opportunity to dive deep and let go and create a better version of yourself, or, you know, a better reality for you and your children, why would you not be curious just to dip your toe in? Like, you don't, you know, it's like once upon a time on a timeline, I'm sure somebody went to therapy and everyone was like, that's so weird. What do you mean? Like everything that has evolved over time, you know, like there would have been a time once where somebody made a cup of tea and people were like, why are you drinking herbs? Like everything, we're conditioned, and as we've evolved and grown, as we've evolved as humans, our evolution and our ability to connect to source and have people who can hold space for us to connect to within, it's like a gift. My clients say to me, like, it's a gift, it's a privilege, you know, and I feel so lucky that I'm able to hold that space. So
I also think
just, you know, you don't have to jump in, but be curious. Like, what, you've got nothing to lose in being curious.
I was about to say, and I think if you have that curious spark and you follow it, because when I first got like, oh, I'm kind of interested in this, I was also still like, this is probably a scam. This is probably a joke. Like, I'm going to pay this money to do this retreat and I'm not even going to like it, or like whatever it is. But I just honored the idea of like, well, if you feel like this draw to it and you feel this, I want to do this, why not? Like, give it a go. Maybe you can laugh about it later and be like, oh, that was silly. Like, why did I do that? But at least go. And I'm so glad that I did, because it opened up so much. So I always say that to people, like, if you're curious, look into it. You know, the worst that can happen is you just be like, oh, well, it wasn't for me, and that's it, you know? So I'm so happy you came on, because we've been trying to do this for a while to get you on, and it hasn't.
I know we have.
And
Thank you for having me.
That's okay. I'm so glad. And I really hope people enjoyed this. And I really hope this gives people some things to go away and think about and reflect on. Yeah.
And, you know, like, people voice note me. Like, I get so people voice note me and they're like, I feel like this and I'm thinking this, and what do you think about this? Like, you know, it's okay to chat to me about your life and what's happened. Like, book a free connection call. We can just chat. You don't have to do anything. But I better run because I've got a beautiful woman come in and I want to clear my energy out of here for her. But I love you. Thanks for chatting with me.
Kellie, thank you. I've loved it. I absolutely love Kellie's energy. She is like someone who is just so like in the flow. Like at the end there, she's like, okay, well, I've got to go because I've got like this happening and I want to clear my space. And I'm like, of course you do. That is just very Kelly. But I did want to just close off that I know that this podcast is a little bit cuckoo, a little bit woo-woo, a little bit different. But I think it's cool to share about, and it's cool to show you guys the different things that are accessible and the different work you can kind of do. Like I said, I am definitely not the type of person that it's like, oh, you can just do like holistic work like this and be better. Like I said at the very beginning of the episode, I take medication and I do like medical help for my mental health and how I show up as a mum every day. I have a traditional therapist and I do traditional talk therapy with, you know, someone with their degree and do all of that, and that is so beneficial. And then I also do holistic work, and I truly think that all the different areas of work that I have done have led to this happier, healthier, glowier version of me. And I'm really grateful for all the different types of self-work that I have done over the last year. And I know that people definitely discredit or brush off any type of alternative work like what Kelly does. And I used to be that person. I used to be like, what a waste of money. What a joke. Like, I would never be into that. I would never like that. And then I started to get into it and I'm like, wow, this is really powerful. And this really has a space not to take over the other work I'm doing, but it's got its own benefits that complement the work that I'm doing. And yeah, I think just having a space where it's safe to really talk about like the physical manifestations of emotions, to talk about energy, to talk about trauma and things that have happened to you. I think that's so beautiful. And I think that's why the work that Kelly does is so impactful. And I love that she's just so connected to helping women and helping mothers. I don't know, her and I just align on a soul level in that sense, because I feel weirdly what I do is very similar in the sense of like I create content for mothers and for women, and I feel really drawn to doing that. And I think even though we do it in different spaces, her and I really connect. It was very special sharing Kelly with you all and talking about the things that we've sort of done together and the things that she's taught me and I have learnt. And so I really hope you guys enjoyed the episode and found it interesting. I would love to hear any feedback about it, or if it has changed your thoughts on anything or made you more curious to look into things. Like Kelly said, she did give her social handles. If you wanted to DM her and ask questions, I'm sure she would be more than happy to answer them and talk more. But yeah, I think for me, recording this episode was one of my favorite ones to record. It made me feel the most, I don't know, like just lit up. And I was like, I'm so excited to share this with you all. So I really hope you enjoyed it. And I will be back next week. I'm going to love you and I'm going to leave you. Sweet dreams.